She turned to her side, expecting to see Matt still there, his hands reaching for her. But he was gone. In time, sooner than you would think, all thoughts of ghosts and wizards and rings and parents who had no right of ever being parents faded from her thoughts like an old Three Dog Night song. Santa Cruz, California, 2008. Stephanie smiled encouragingly at her beautiful granddaughter, 14 years old and already so tall, developing so quickly. Her hair was blonde, but besides that, she looked just like her grandmother had at her age, expensive grill work and all. It was so hard to reassure the child that someday the metallurgy would come out, and those teeth would be perfect. She would be, perhaps, the most beautiful CEO in the history of some lucky company, or the most gorgeous research scientist in the lab, or, well, anything but an actress. Besides, some boys like braces, as weird as that sounded. Gwen, her daughter, and Julie's mother, made the final adjustments on the costume, an elven princess for the school play, of course, and swatted her into the next room to ogle herself in the full-length mirror. The smiles faded as Gwen glimpsed over her shoulder at nothing in particular. Mom, do you ever have the impression that you're being watched? I was a theater arts major, darling. I got used to it. No, I mean, when you're walking down the street on a dark, too quiet evening, and you can feel eyes boring into the back of your head, you turn around, but no one's there. No one you can see, anyway. Everyone has that feeling, dear. I believe Stephen King built his career on it. She laughed lightly. But it seems to be worse in the summer, especially in June, right after the schools let out. I can't explain exactly why, but sometimes I feel I'm being stalked. Stephanie refused to shut her eyes. She made no physical movement at all to betray the 14-year-old tremor of fear suddenly coursing through her body. She kept her face straight, a hell of a poker player, and not that bad of an actress. No. That night, 14 years ago, alone in her home for God knows what reason, was really just a dream. It had to have been. Wizards may exist, but they can't do magic. And ugly, ersatz medieval rings infested countless farmers' markets, carnivals, and street fairs. They weren't magic. They were junk jewelry. It's just your imagination, dear, Stephanie pronounced, sounding like Mrs. Olsen in the ancient coffee commercials, mildly concerned, encouraging, and having just the right solution for all of life's problems, i.e., the perfect mom. Maybe. But it was at its worst about 7 years ago, when... 7. Increments, multiples of 7. Gwen continued. I spent a couple of weeks, when John and I separated, thinking someone was hiding out in the bushes by my apartment building. I called the police once, but they didn't find anything. You never told me. I didn't want you worrying about me. Besides, I was sure it was my imagination, and I sure as hell didn't want John or anyone else to think that we couldn't make it. Men, people can be so patronizing. I understand. Once I thought for sure that there was a face at the bedroom window. I caught it in the mirror when I was getting ready for bed. I trust, dear, that you started drawing the blinds, Stephanie inquired evenly. Oh, Mother, the bedroom was in the back of the complex and up on the 3rd floor. Nobody could see anything. It must have been my imagination. Looking back, I realized that. I mean, it was long after sunset, and the face I thought I saw in the mirror was wearing sunglasses. A blind peeping Tom? Even I can't swallow that one. Did you start drawing the blinds? Stephanie repeated. Yes, but the feeling of being watched by a lonely something in the room, somehow continued for a while after that. But the feeling did go away, didn't it? Eventually? Stephanie asked, finishing her tea and placing the cup back into the saucer with the elegance that came only from years of practice. She didn't tremble at all. I think so. I mean, the separation was just for a little while. When John came back, we couldn't remember why we split in the first place. There was never any mental cruelty or anything like that. Even now, I'm not sure why he felt he had to leave. Men. Stephanie delivered the line, this time sounding like Sandra D. as Gidget, if a bit older. She forced her poker face to look towards the first-rate view of Monterey Bay. Then she pulled a small, technical smile out of her bag of tricks and turned back to her daughter. Her voice was concerned, empathic, and just a little too loud. Call someone when you feel like that, Gwen. Call me. Call anyone. It's just your mind playing tricks on you. You'll feel better after talking to someone. I tell myself that, but I worry. That's what mothers do, right? I don't ever want anything bad to happen to Julie. Stephanie continued smiling. It was a consummate performance. That's what mothers do, she agreed. We worry. I think I'll get some air. You have such lovely sunsets here. If you can see it, Mom, the mist is up. Outside, on the front porch, Stephanie clutched at the handrail to steady herself. Her eyes were drawn to the hedges that lined the property. They needed to be trimmed. She stepped quietly towards them. They seemed to rustle in the wind, but there was no wind. The air had been stagnant for weeks. Stephanie whispered firmly, a loud, clear stage whisper that could be heard in the back of a crowded theater. Matt! Leave her alone! Leave us alone! Gwen, Julie, and me, leave us alone! I'm trying. The wind seemed to whisper, but there was no wind. In the backyard, the Chinese blocks rattled for a moment before quieting. Or perhaps it was the rattling of old bones. You have been listening to You're Getting to Be a Habit by Chuck Briggs. Copyright 2012 by Chuck Briggs. Read by the author. Oh, hello there. Welcome backstage. My name is Chuck Briggs, and by the graces of our producer and story editor, Mr. Mark Slade, stepping out of character for a moment, one of the things we've wanted to do on the Dark Dreams podcast now is to give you a little bit more information about the writers who have contributed their stories. And as luck would have it, I'm the first one up to bat. Who am I, and why are you listening to me? Well, I'm nobody, really. I was a theater arts major back in the 70s, and I thought there's no shortage of great actors in the world. The world's not going to miss me. I left California in 1979 and never thought about acting again. For 10 years, I was working in a call center in Seattle, Washington, before it was outsourced. I did some voiceover work for some training films that they did there. I was working for a temp agency looking for permanent employment when the big crash came, and had to leave Seattle. I met Mark Slade through a website called writerscafe.org. He was very supportive about my writing projects I had out there, and I read a lot of his stuff and was very impressed with it. He asked me for a story for his podcast, and I proudly gave it to him. When he heard I was interested in doing my own stories, narrating my own stories, he gave me the opportunity, which is what we ended up with tonight. Now, about the story itself, I'm sure there's one or two people out there thinking, well, who is it about? Who are these people really? And I need to tell you that every word of that was absolutely true. No, it doesn't quite work like that. Stephen King gave the best description I know of the writing process and drawing from life. There are the little chapbooks that he had given to his children. They have different eyes and different noses and different mouths, and you can flip the pages back and forth and make different faces out of them. That's exactly what you do in fiction. You don't tell exactly what happened, because exactly what happened is usually boring or ridiculous or embarrassing for somebody. That's why we write fiction. We exaggerate here, change a little bit there, and try to make sense out of it all. This particular story I wrote, I think it was 1988, somewhere in there. It was right after the murder of Rebecca Schaeffer. It occurred to me that there aren't a lot of role models to follow for loners who become obsessed with people. We've been trained by Hollywood. We're the hero of our own little movies, and the hero always gets the girl in the end. And if he doesn't get the girl, he's just not trying hard enough. They don't stop to ask if the girl's even interested in him or not, but in his mind, he's the hero. So you've got these guys like John Hinckley, become obsessed over strangers, and often with tragic results, as in the case of Rebecca Schaeffer. Of course, that guy was mad, but it's still the same principle. We are conditioned to act like that. I wanted to do the ultimate story of bad romantic obsession. I wanted to show someone who didn't see himself as a villain. He might even be sympathetic to a degree, but what he's doing is absolutely wrong. Now, often an obsessed person will think in terms of, I'm just not trying hard enough. Sure, there have been other people out there who have been obsessed over women, but they don't love them as much as I do because I'm special. I kind of took it a little bit further than Stephen King did in I Know What You Want, which, by the way, is a great story. Everyone should read that, and tried to make it work metaphorically. There was controversy over the original ending. In various writing groups I had tried this thing out in. Basically, my original ending was very downbeat, very nihilistic. Matt gets his way at the end. He's the hero, so he gets what he wants. He drags Stephanie off into darkness, and she's never seen again. He lives happily ever after, and she's not doing so well. To me, that was the honest ending. I mean, in the end, Rebecca Schaeffer was shot. These guys just don't back down. If I can't have her, no one's going to have her because I love her so much. In reality, if you actually love them, like Sting says, you set them free. So that was what I thought was the honest ending. People wanted to see something more positive, and I tried to make that. I tried to write the thing so he lets Stephanie go, and he manfully walks off into the sunset or into the sunrise and meets his destiny. But I didn't do it with any conviction. It was a cheat, and I knew it was a cheat. And so that story just sat there for 20 years. I'll pick it up every once in a while and think, okay, well, this passage is pretty good, this passage is pretty good. How do I end this stupid thing? And I couldn't find any other ending than the one I had, which is the one that people hated, until it finally occurred to me that, maybe there is no ending. Maybe it's like, an obsession is like any other addiction. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. Every day of your life you get up and have to make that struggle that you're not going to behave thusly. You're not going to give in to the bottle. You've got to recognize that you are addicted. So that was the ending, that there is no ending. It just keeps going on, and Matt tries as hard as he can to stay away from her, but he's not always successful. And it seems to be the ending that works for it. I put some places in there just to make it real to me when I was writing it that were based on fact. I went to high school in Redondo Beach and had some idea of what Torrance looked like. I put a couple place names in there that are named after people I know, but that was just in fun. It's not about anybody. It's about a concept. It's about obsession itself. And again, the characters are composites of people I knew that you can't stick all that on one poor person and say it belongs to them. Unless you want to say that the whole thing is absolutely true. Well, this has been fun. I hope to see you again next week. I'll be your anonymous voiceover, welcoming you to Dark Dreams.